You were meant to thrive, not just survive, right? The big idea is that you will thrive in your attractiveness and in your health if you work with your body like your ancestors did, and if you reject the abundant modern habits that sacrifice your health, looks, and happiness, right? Your ancestors need you to lock in, right? That doesn't mean locking yourself in a room and just grinding 24/7. It means actually being healthy, right? And these are just examples of a bunch of healthy habits that will change the course of your life, bro, right? I used to be in survival mode without even knowing, right? I had just enough energy, mood, and vitality to get through the day, but I was operating at about 40% of my actual true potential in health and attractiveness, right? And as you can see, it was all poor habits and lifestyle that actually led me to look and feel my worst. But when I started thriving through my health and lifestyle and diets, I started looking and both feeling the best. So step one is going to be escaping the modern habits that are making you uglier, right? We firstly have to understand our human nature. We didn't actually evolve to make rational diet or exercise decisions in this abundant society, right? We take everything for granted. We even take our toilets for granted, right? Our ancestors, they didn't have phones. They didn't have all of these newer technologies, right? And that is the basis of the mismatch hypothesis, which means basically we're not evolved for the abundant modern like lifestyle with technology, right? We went from hunters and gatherers to farmers, and that was the start of introducing this sedentary lifestyle of cities, right? This kind of lifestyle that most of us kind of experience today, right? Living in cities or suburbs, right? And we've also seen the rise of health issues because of this, right? We have lower mortality, which means we're actually not dying as much, right? We're living longer technically, but that is replaced with higher morbidity, which means bad health, right? And people will say, but no, we're living longer, we're discovering all these new cures to diseases and stuff. But bro, literally, even young couples are facing infertility, right? Young couples cannot have children anymore, some of them, because of the bad lifestyle and habits. And if we just were to live like this, I don't think we would see a lot of those, right? But now we've kind of evolved, like we're starting at least to evolve backwards, right? And if we look at even closer at this, the standard hunter-gatherer diet versus the standard American diet is an interesting look, right? So imagine this, right? The standard American diet versus some kind of like diet where you just eat some basis like of different food groups and you stick to those, right? So in the hunter and gatherer diet, they would eat about 35 to 40% carbs, right? Carbohydrates, right? That will give them energy, that will fuel their day. Average Americans eat 52%, which is a significant increase, right? That means they're only leaving 48% for proteins and fats. So there's a lot of carbs there, which could be healthy if it was from fruits. But for most average Americans, those carbs aren't coming from fruits. They're coming from these kind of shakes and pancakes and sauces and stuff, right? For simple sugars, that's like the biggest difference right here, right? Hunters and gatherers ate 2% of simple sugars. 2%. Average Americans consume 15 to 30% of simple sugars. That just proves how, we've lost it, right? We've lost ourselves. We've lost our health through the diet choices we make. Fat, Americans consume more of the fat, probably in the unhealthy versions. So the unsaturated fats, right? They also consume a lot of that, which means in nowadays, the trans fats, the seed oils, those didn't really exist for our ancestors, but nowadays we got that shit, right? Protein, the average American eats less protein, which obviously isn't good. We're talking about muscle, we're talking about longevity overall. If you don't have muscle, you're gonna die sooner, right? Fiber is a big one. The average American consumed almost no fiber, and our ancestors, they were eating fruits, right? They got plenty of fiber through that, and that was super healthy for them, right? Cholesterol was above 500 milligrams for our ancestors. That means it's a lot compared to today's standards. And basically it's because they ate the saturated healthy fats and not the unsaturated bad fats, and therefore cholesterol isn't something that you should fear. And we can also see for the minerals, for the vitamins, the ancestors had way better stats, right? So step 2 in this, to actually getting the benefits we need, is to reverse engineering the way we cook and the way we eat, right? So I want you to stop cooking and eating like this. Number 1, only consuming the muscle, right? Because if you only consume the muscle of the animal, which is the complete opposite of what our ancestors were doing, they were actually eating the whole animal, the head, the eyes, right? The blood as well, right? You don't have to go to that extreme, but stop wasting the nutrients, right? By only eating the muscle. You can eat the flesh, fat, ligaments, bone. You can make a lot of stuff out of a whole package, right? Of animal foods, right? Number 2 is stop eating toxic grains, right? That's what I like. That's what's in oats, basically, seeds, rice, and this is basically just horrible for your health. We're not meant to eat this. This was basically engineered. It was invented by farming, which obviously led to the distracted the higher morbidity I talked about earlier. So number 3 is overcooking your food using cheap toxic seed oils. That's horrible for you. Your food, the nutrients in it gets destroyed when you actually heat it up too much. A steak shouldn't be heated, above a certain degree, and that goes for any food. And you shouldn't use seed oils to cook it. Any oil, basically, you should just eat. I'll cover what you should use, right? Number 4, not eating the food in a bioavailable way. If you don't have the right balance of nutrients and vitamins, which you do get from eating a whole animals based diet, like this one, right? But if you don't eat like that, you're probably not eating the food in a bioavailable way, and you're not having the right concentrations of fatty acids, minerals, vitamins, so you're not going to digest the food properly, right? Get those nutrients you want, right? So we can't be ignorant. That is the lesson from this. We can't just guess. We have to kind of stick to some rules, because in the abundant world we have today, we have too many options, and most of them are not good for us, right? So the golden rule to stick to is 4 or less ingredients. Just turn a food in the grocery store to its turn it around and read the ingredients. If it has more than 4 ingredients, just put it back. Don't even question actually eating that. So I also don't think you should follow a diet. I think you need to follow a way of cooking and eating. A way, right? Not a specific diet like carnivore, like paleo, like Mediterranean. Just a way of cooking and eating, right? And the main rule is still 4 or less ingredients, right? But number 1, don't cook meat above medium rare. I talked about the heat, right? That's why you don't want to cook it above medium rare. Number 2, always cook in butter, tallow, or ghee. That is the options you want to have, and basically swap out your oils for even olive oil, because when olive oil heats up, it turns into a seed oil. So just use butter, tallow, or ghee for cooking, right? And for additives like MSG, stevia, I would just throw these out, right? Don't use them anymore, because they actually create more problems than they fix. They basically don't fix any problem, right? If you use simple spices, I personally just use salt. That's more than enough, right? That's more than enough tastiness when you eat real food. Also, don't fear to use salt or fat, especially when you're eating a whole-based, single ingredient diet with 4 less ingredients in every food. Don't be afraid of salt or fat. That won't make you fat. It's sugar that way, right? Especially sugar without fiber, so not in fruits and not in raw honey, because raw honey is pretty good for you, right? So, but otherwise than that, sugar is the enemy, right? So, number 5, source your ruminant meat from a grass-fed source. So ruminant meat means meat from cows, basically. They have multiple stomachs and stuff. That's why you need to source a grass-fed. If you can't do that, just buy the regular meat from cows, whatever, and just live off that, right? 6 is supplements, which is in quotes because it's not really supplements. It's just cooking some bone broth, which you can search up online, right? that there you're using the bone of the animal as well, right? And then some pieces of liver, that's the organs of the animals, right? Liver, it has basically everything you need in the most amount of nutrients, right? Of basically every food, right? So it's the most nutrient dense meat of all. But you shouldn't consume too much of it because then it will give you some kind of copper imbalance. So just tiny pieces of it, chop it up, just have like a dime piece, right? Like this, a couple of times per week maybe, and chop it up and put it in some ground beef, right? So you can actually cook it with the ground beef and not eat it by itself because it's not that good to eat by itself, right? So a bonus tip is to take a 10 to 20-minute walk after every meal to aid your digestion as well, and that will make it feel easier to eat. So step 3 is accelerating your transformation, right? So stop considering going unnatural if you have a hair, right? Because no, you should not think about peptides, Rita, or Ozempic. They address, problems that didn't actually exist like 100 years ago because our ancestors wouldn't need them when they ate natural foods. They cooked food in natural ways, right? They wouldn't need these problems that lower your satiety so you're not hungry, but then cause like depression, they cause anxiety, they cause a bunch of different new problems, right? And these compounds in many peptides can actually be found in organ meat. So we talked about the liver, you can also eat heart, kidneys, there's a lot of organs that also contain a lot of these healthy peptides that are beneficial. If you really don't want to consume all of those, right, all of those organs by themselves because they can be a little bit funny tasting, you could use a supplement, right? This is kind of the supplement I would go for, Heart and Soil. It's Paul Saladino's supplement. I believe the ingredients are good in those, so give those a try if you want this to supplement with the organs. And you should also aim to optimize your environment, right? There's EMF wavelengths, which are electromagnetic fields that they risk interrupting cellular processes in your body, which are obviously super important because your body runs on the cells, right? And we are electromagnetic beings technically, right? We have all these electrons coursing through our bodies. That's why we can actually be disturbed. You don't really notice it, right? But you do get disturbed like this because your phone emits the EMF, electromagnetic fields, right? To actually minimize how much this is interrupting our cellular process, you should use wired headphones, right? These ones. Instead of your Bluetooth regular headphones, just use wired, right? Number 2, never have your phone in your pocket. This doesn't matter if it's in the front of your pocket, in your back pocket, don't have it in your pocket because the closer you have it to your balls, the worse. Because the EMF especially disrupts the testiculars because that's on the outside of our bodies, right? So the sperm quality, and that's horrible for you, right? Number 3 is having a normal watch over a wearable. All of these tracking devices that do also often have the Bluetooth on, which is obviously then the EMF signals. You don't want to use the Bluetooth function. And they're also just, on your wrist or something 24/7 if you have a Whoop, for example. So just having a normal watch, you don't need to always track your health and know every goddamn metric, right? So number 4 is not having your phone next to your bed when you're sleeping or even in your bed because it will also emit the EMF, right? Especially if you have Wi-Fi on and it's connected to the internet. If you turn off Wi-Fi, that can help, right? And a bonus is your circadian rhythm, which basically means your internal clock. You can align that by going to sleep and waking up at the same time every day. That's what I would do, right? Lastly, I want you to avoid the plastic, right? We talked about the sperm quality. Well, it's actually slowly castrating us, right? Microplastics and with endocrine disruptors and BPAs, which are in these microplastics, they attract even more microplastics, right? So they're gonna make it so that you get more and more and more, and it should just accumulates in your body. That's what we're seeing right now, because it's actually slowly chemically castrating us, right? Us men, it's making men kind of infertile, right? Even frogs are turning gender, turning trans, and alligator penises are shrinking, right? We're seeing this. Even male penises are shrinking, men who fought wars, they had like 1,000 plus nanograms per deciliter, like hundreds of years ago. But now we're feeling like this because our testosterone is, at the lowest point it's ever been. And it's a lot thanks to these plastics, right? So the biggest sources you need to avoid are plastic water bottles, coffee cups, like those you get at Starbucks or coffee shops, because they're also lined in plastics, even though they look like paper, right? And it's super bad to consume, to have these, especially when it's a hot drink, so coffee or something, because the boiling water makes it so the microplastics get even more into the drink, it's even more, available to actually get into your body. And number three, any receipts you basically shouldn't touch, at least if you're outside of the EU. If you live in Europe, they kind of regulated this by making the receipt not contain these microplastics, but still, you don't need to be touching on receipts, especially outside of the EU. Number four is soup cans. So they have also, of course, a soup can. When you heat it, you don't really look like, it doesn't look like it's plastic, but these aluminium like cans also are lined with plastic. And even though they're aluminium, when they get heated up, these microplastics also are there, right? Soda cans and energy drinks, it's the same stuff, right? They're lined with plastics. Even though they look like metal, they're lined with plastics. So preferably you don't drink those at all, especially for the diet benefits as well from not drinking. Even zero sugar are not good for you at all. And then sixth, plastic containers that has food. So don't heat up your food in plastic boxes because you're making some meal prep or something. Try to get them glass, try to get them marble or something else than the plastic, right? Because in the microwave, when it gets hot, those microplastics get active, right? So the action step I want you to follow, closing off this guide, is to screenshot the protocols and follow these the best you can so you can actually make the difference, right? So you can thrive and not just survive, right? So the first one I want you to screenshot is this one, so you can avoid the plastic. Then optimize your environment. This is also important, right? Don't consider going unnatural. You can screenshot this. Okay, we have the way of eating. We have stop eating or cooking your food like that. And yeah, that's basically all you need to make a good transformation in your health and looks by not just surviving, but by thriving like your ancestors did, right? If you want more in-depth I have a link in the top description. So in the top of the description below this video, the first link, you can book a free call with me where I just help you for free for an hour basically. And yeah, just book that if you want my further help personally. And if you just want to hang out, talk to me or whatever, you can join my Discord, which is the second link in the description below this video, and just hang out with me and other young men, right? Work with your body, not against it. Peace!